Making Choices. The Story of Guam. On page 252 of the book, we will find out more about the biodiversity in this country. This is a story about how the brown tree snakes were affected in Guam. It will highlight conservation efforts worldwide and introduce biodiversity and its importance. The story took place in the 1940s when shipments of timber arrived to Guam from New Guinea with some brown tree snakes. These tree snakes were not native to Guam, which means they did not originally live in Guam, but they came to Guam from New Guinea in these ships. Guam already had tiny snakes, different from the new ones that arrived, but the new ones were a threat to the tiny snakes because they can grow up to 3 meters long, and they feed on birds and lizards, and they hunt at night. We know that Guam has endemic or native birds and lizards that are attacked at night by these new snakes. Since these snakes are not originally from Guam, there are no predators in Guam to attack these snakes, so there was no reason to cause their death. After 30 years of their presence in Guam, the new snakes had grown enough in population to start to affect the number of birds that already lived in Guam. The number of these snakes started to increase, while the number of birds started to decrease. And once scientists recognized this, they started captive breeding programs of the threatened endemic birds. This means they started to breed these birds selectively in order to increase their number while they are protected from the snakes and not being eaten by them. The result of the new snakes is the extinction of 7 species of birds indigenous to Guam, and some Guam birds are now in the zoo under intensive breeding programs. Not only birds, but also lizards started to disappear. 5 native species to Guam disappeared. And the biggest concern is that the brown tree snakes will spread from Guam to neighboring islands, because if they do, they will cause the same effect to other species. One thing they thought of doing was putting electrical barriers on the borders to prevent snakes from moving around. These electrical barriers stop the snakes, and special sniffer dogs that can sniff these snakes specifically were put in Cargo Bay. The use of the electricity as well as the police sniffer dogs is in order to prevent these snakes from going to outside countries. People are trapping snakes at a rate of 6,000 a year, but that is never enough. There are always plenty more snakes. And that is because only one female egg can lay up to 24 eggs, and it can do that twice each year. So imagine if each female did that twice a year. The recent population count of these snakes is over 2 million, so catching around 6,000 a year is not even enough to delay their growth.